find yourself getting passed by multiple cars, as I mentioned earlier on. So Nurov in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. He doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haig deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
I would say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the down pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped him all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down in towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. It's now Pike going to have a go at Werrell. Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still such trouble. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
Moving on to the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's allowed to have fun. Yeah. It's all about the entertainment, so I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching. And the Burger King machine's off into the grass a little bit there. Is that really bunching up now?
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to toss it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly. Miller's still such up. He's not a second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to PRL. It's Season 12. We're back once again for Round 5. We're at the Spielberg Red Bull Ring circuit, and we're going to reach the halfway point in Tier 2 Season 12, in what should hopefully be an exciting, fast and furious race around the mountains in Austria. My name is Darragh Thacker. Joining me in the commentary booth once again is Joshua, Griffin, Meek, and Josh. Austria, we had a crazy race yesterday, lots going on. I think we're expecting more of the same tonight.
Yep, certainly. Not a single driver held back last night in Tier 1. All of them going for it right from the outset. Fantastic to see the drivers having so much confidence in their abilities to absolutely wing it from the start and be able to finish on an equally high note as well. Something we do need to mention as well, given it is Austria, track limits. They played a pivotal part last night. They can very well play a pivotal part again tonight.
Absolutely can, and of course, the Spielberg circuit, Red Bull Ring, there's not many corners, there's not many chances to gain or lose much time. Of course, we've got, you think, turn 1 up to turn 3, turn 4, then you've got turn 6, and then you've got the 7K, 9, and 10. That's basically, it can't really gain or lose much more time around that. We're going to see probably quite a close qualifying session. Of course, the points in qualifying, Josh, they could be really important, just that extra 100th or 1000th.
Yeah, of course, realistically as well. We've got a couple big names missing from this week as well. The likes of Craggy Speed, Collateral Zoom, Shane, all not competing here today. So there's very much a solid chance for Beast to be able to try and close up a little bit in the championship. But as we speak about championships, I feel like it's only fair to show what's popping. Because we've got, what is that, 7 points separating the top 3? That's ridiculously close. And considering we don't have Craggy, we don't have Shane, Rapid OG could be one of the favourites to take the championship lead here. Could even do it in the qualifying session if he's able to get pole.
Yeah, I mean, with some of those big names not here, it does give that chance to the others, doesn't it? And you know, Rapid OG, he'll be licking his lips to look at who's in the lobby. But even a few of the other guys, with the top runners not in, it's a good chance to pick up points. At this midway point of the season, you want to be picking up as many points as you can. You don't really want to be dropping too far back, and you've got to take these kind of opportunities where you can. Of course, after this week, we're going to go into a couple of weeks' worth of break weeks here at PRL, so you kind of want to give yourself a good momentum boost and a good confidence boost going into that break.
Certainly so. I mean, we saw it last night as well. That sim racer, Alex, unfortunately not being able to finish the race, picking up a time penalty, retiring from the session. And, you know, given that, it could potentially be a huge momentum swing for the other drivers he's trying to compete against. He's got a bit of a safer buffer, though. He's got a couple extra points than what we see here in Tier 2. If a momentum swing was to really start pivoting here, what a reason to do it. At the end of the European stint, before approaching the tracks like Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, you know, that Middle East part of the calendar we was talking about, it's all very close, all very technical. It can be a little bit challenging to overtake on a couple of those circuits as well. Getting this momentum swing right now could be pivotal in the championship. We always mention consistency is key, but as well, momentum just carrying it through to the next round. I mean, going into a break, you want to end on a high. Every single driver does.
And we're kind of transitioning, aren't we, in this season from the tracks where qualifying is very important, the likes of Imola, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, to the tracks like Austria, Abu Dhabi, where you can really gain quite a few positions in the race. It's easier to make those moves. Of course, you can do a lot more side-by-side racing at Austria than you can at the Netherlands. So I think it's going to be interesting, really, just to see how these drivers adapt, whether we might see a couple names maybe rise a little bit further to the top, and whether they can try and get a bit of a run through the final races of the season, because, of course, such difference, really, isn't it, between the start of the season and the end of the season, that we might see some different drivers really surge towards the end of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at the drivers which have checked in this week. I'm looking at the likes of Rapid OG, Komi-san. Komi-san, once again, showing the ability to cut away from the field. Did it around Portimao. Yes, got caught up in a couple collisions, but still getting, that experience of close racing and getting the overtake sorted on drivers throughout this field. It's going to play an absolute pivotal role heading into these next couple of races where overtaking is available and there is an opportunity. And also, the drivers who volunteer and put themselves forward to hop into Tier 1 as a reserve, they're going to get a lot more experience. I'm looking at Crew Steamers, again, had a solid result last night, looking to build on it here again today, just to make sure they can keep buffing themselves up each and every single round. Of course, doing double the amount of races, surely it would have double the impact on what these drivers are capable to do. And we can see here, it's looking a little bit dark in the sky. We saw it yesterday. Fortunately, no rain, but Darragh's here. You bring the rain.
I do, don't I? I'm kind of
You do.
I'm a moving cloud, which isn't, the best of qualities to have. But as it is, I'm here. The rain's going to be here. We might see some wet, dry running. Who knows? Well, to be honest, if we see everyone rush out of the pit lane, we know it's about to rain. But if everyone takes their time, which they look like they're, no one's like pelting themselves out of the grid or out of their pit box just yet. Although saying that, I can see 1, 2, 3. There are 4 mechanics getting their cars out of the pit lane, or out of the garages, I should say. So maybe we might start to see a little bit of precipitation soon, but there isn't that mad rush that you'd probably expect to see if rain was imminent.
Exactly. These drivers, we saw it yesterday as well. It's very creative, the methods that a lot of the drivers tend to go out, and we saw a couple drivers trading a little bit of tow with one another, going for an in-lap, going for an out-lap, just working it around, not only just their teammate, but in between the different teams as well. All of them really just trying to gain some sort of competitive advantage. And when you come to a track like Austria, where slipstream and where tow is so important, if you're able to maybe nick maybe a tenth, maybe 2 tenths off of a car in front, which is going out on that outlap or just slowing down for an in-lap, that'll really help bolster your lap time at the field, especially considering how little opportunities there are around this circuit. As you mentioned, finite amount of corners, even fewer braking zones where you're able to make up that time.
Ooh. And you don't really want to be doing what Halo's just done through turn 6 and turn 7, because that's not the way you're going to gain very much time around there. We're going to go with just Komi-san then, through 9 and 10, as he peels his way to start his first flying lap of the session. We've got about half the drivers out and half the drivers still sat in the pit lane for now, but it is the AlphaTauri drivers of just Komi-san and Halo who are going to be the first ones out as he just dips his way through turn 1. It's difficult, isn't it? Because, of course, that rise up towards turn 1, it can really kind of put you off that braking zone and that turning point for the opening corner. Of course, it's difficult. It pinches up a little bit. On the exit, you don't want to run too far wide.
Yeah, of course, because we know the louder curb. It's like a magnet to the underneath of these cars, isn't it? It'll want to suck you in. If you end up just missing that turning point by maybe 1 or 2 millimeters, if you get 1 or 2 of your, that left-hand side of the tyres over that, it'll suck you right in on it. You'll have a lot of trouble trying to regain control of the car, move it back onto the circuit, invalidate your lap time, and potentially, in the race, could cause a bit of damage.
Can cause a little bit of damage. Of course, if the floor damage is on in this particular lobby, we might see a couple of drivers pick up some of that kind of wear on the car through turn 1, through the Niki Lauda curb, and maybe even through these final couple of corners here, as he just Komi-san dipping his way through turn 10 at the final corner, run up to the line. I think Halo said a faster time here. It's a 4.7. Actually, it was pretty much the same. They're both 4.7s. So there are 200ths in it. But that just shows you there's barely any time that you can find around this circuit.
Absolutely, and if you consider in fact as well, you know, Halo would have got a little bit of a slipstream heading up into turn 3, heading down back to turn 4, but then having to counteract that with the dirty air still affecting these cars. Yes, for ground effect, but they still suffer from dirty air throughout that middle sector, and it just gives a couple of these drivers, you know, that sort of dilemma, let's say, of how much do they value the slipstream in trade-off for picking up the dirty air, and kind of risking that little run, trying to understand what's going to be more prominent, what's going to take more of a precedent for their decision-making. If you're running slightly higher wings, you might be able to sit a little bit closer behind a car in that second sector, follow a little bit easier in the dirty air, but then you're basically guaranteeing yourself that you must get a toe in this qualifying session to be able to put a solid lap time on the board. As crazy I do it, looking here to set a flying lap time, took 2 laps of preparation. We saw it last night as well. Was able to grab pole position with another extra lap just to get those tyres into a working window. Crazy I do it. Certainly one of those who seem to have studied from last night. Oh dear, I feel like Darragh's internet might have disappeared. Well, we're riding on board here, Crazy I Do It. You're seeing him now approach all the way down here into turn 4, nice and light on the brakes, looking for that 8 metre mark, chucking it into the right hand side, being careful here not to extend on that left hand side. It can be very easy to do if you try and carry too much speed in before flicking it over here to the left, just hoping and praying the car will want to stick. You can run it out all the way to the AstroTurf, that little green strip you see on the right hand side. Does so beautifully, doesn't take too much of the inside curve and knowing it can disrupt the balance of the car, it might not necessarily feel great, before chucking it in here to the final 2 corners, slightly off the apex, so that's going to of course affect his run here down the final corner, having to lift off there mid-apex to make sure he doesn't invalidate the lap time. There's still a little bit of time to find there, but it's already up to P6 for Crazy I Do It.
Yeah, it's a very good lap time for him in the Williams car, of course. I definitely have been calling him Crazy I Do It the entire season long.
Yes.
But it's good for Beast at the moment. He's currently a couple of tenths clear, a quarter of a second or so from SSR Halo, and Rapid Gopher has just snuck his way up. The fact that Gopher is on that medium as well shows that there's pace in that Haas car. Alberto Maracucho, he jumps up into P6, joining, he's not joining his teammate, I should say, on the 3rd row, but you know, 3rd and a half row. They're going to be next to each other as it stands, but still a long way to go in this session as we run through, only a third of the way through. Of course, with this lap being so short, with the lap times only just being over a minute, you can get really 4 runs very comfortably in, can't you? I mean, some tracks like Spa, you're very hard pressed to get 3, but you can easily get 4 done here at Spielberg.
Yeah, but again, you know, I was mentioning it to Alex last night. It's kind of that trade-off. Do you want to jeopardize using the sets of tyres during the qualifying segment in case, like we saw last night, a last-minute safety car comes out, can affect sort of a strategy, the ideas behind it? We saw quite a few drivers opt to kind of go towards, you know, the medium, the hards at the start, not necessarily having the soft tyre in mind, but when that safety car came out, it was evident that every single driver saved a spare set just for the race, wanting to make sure they were in that perfect window. Some drivers saving 2 sets by not running all the laps during qualifying and making sure they would have the best opportunity in case something came up, in case another safety car came out, just so they could try and really capitalise on the position they would find themselves in. But the driver who's looking to capitalise on his position at the moment, CJQ, where do we start with him? Had a great run of form at the start of the season. Recently, in the last couple of rounds, seems to have dipped just slightly, but I feel like that's not on him. That's just on the other drivers around him, getting more used to the track, getting more used to the drivers, and find themselves more at home. I feel like CJQ needs that a little bit more time to adapt.
Yeah, there's been flashes of really good pace, isn't there, from CJQ?
Certainly.
I'm thinking at Spain, particularly. He was right up there at the start of the race. I think he may even started on the front row, or at least the front couple of rows. So he's definitely shown that he's got some very good pace in that Pyre McLaren car, but we're just waiting to see if he can really push forward, of course. CJQ, he's still young, of course, so he's got a lot of time, as you mentioned, to develop, but he'll want that to really kind of kick in, particularly, of course, as the next game is looming upon us in a couple of months' time. You all kind of restart from there. The handling model is slightly different. It might suit some drivers better than others. Always the handling of the McLaren hasn't worked out for him in turn 10, but he's kept it valid somehow. But he lost all the time and he stays P12. But, I mean, the times are still very tight, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you know, in a pitch-perfect world, as he runs it wide there over turn 1 and invalidates his lap time, again, just showing how close it can be around this circuit. If he was able to keep it on the track, though, I reckon he would have probably found, what, six tenths, which probably would have put him up around the Mythbusters, because of course he was 3 tenths down on that lap. But I reckon if he was able to keep it on track, keep it locked down, that lap time would have been 6 tenths better, and he would have been creeping himself up in towards that top 10. Maybe started to apply a bit of pressure to the Williams drivers, who currently find themselves P6. Well, now I say that, P7 and P8. But we should mention, teamwork around Austria can be absolutely crucial for these drivers.
It can be. Lots of slipstreaming, of course, in qualifying, and even just working together on the strategy and knowing what the other driver is doing can be important around a track like Austria. Oliver Sequeira, as you mentioned, or kind of half mentioned, he's gone fastest. He has shown some good pace as well, particularly, I'm remembering back in Tier 1 at the Netherlands. I believe he came P4, wasn't really able to convert that form into Tier 2 last week, but again, he's shown some really, really good pace in the league, not just in Tier 2. We'll have to see if he can really put his foot down and try and claim a win here this evening. RRL Beast is going to be hoping that he cannot do that, though. Up towards the end of Sector 1, it's slightly down, but realistically, Sector 1, it's just the one corner, isn't it? Because, you know, Turn 1, I mean, Turn 2 doesn't really exist, so there's only that one braking zone where you can really gain or lose time. Yeah,
and if you take it a little bit easier up into Turn 1, it could give you maybe an extra couple metres of braking performance heading into Turn 2, and sort of just look after the tyres for this middle sector, because this is where the lateral loads start getting put onto the cars. This is where it's going to start being a little bit of a trouble if the tyres end up overheating in that first sector. But considering the weather as well, being overcast, keeping the track slightly cooler, hopefully overheating and tyre degradation won't be as much of a problem here for this qualifying session. So we could potentially see a lot more of these drivers opting for 2-3 laps on this set of tyre before really going absolute ham for it. But you see there, once again, just picking up that invalidation, running the car just a little bit wide. It's going to certainly be one of those key features we're going to see throughout the rest of this qualifying segment, just because of how hard all the drivers are having to push to maximise their positions. You're realistically looking at, 6 tenths of a second between P1 and P10, which, you know, in any, real version of this Formula 1 scenario is absolutely insane. And it's just as crazy here, because you've got to think, with each lap these drivers are doing, puts down a little bit more rubber, and of course, more rubber, quicker lap times.
Yeah, Rapid Gopher showing us that quicker lap time, 4.1 in the Haas there. Darragh had gone quickest with a 4.43, just ahead of his teammate, but Rapid Gopher is now in front of that. And you're right about track limits. I mean, we see it a lot in real life, particularly around this Spielberg circuit, that a lot of drivers pick up invalidated lap times, or they pick up 5-second time penalties, even 10-second time penalties, I think we saw last season. So these drivers, they've got to be careful, and of course it's one of those tracks where you really are pushing the limits, and quite a few of the corners, you're thinking 9 and 10, you're thinking Turn 1, where you're trying not to run wide, but if you bounce over that inside curb at Turn 1, you're going to find yourself going off the, completely off the track, because you don't want to straddle yourself on that sausage curb. So there's lots of dilemmas that you find at Spielberg that you don't often find anywhere else, particularly, and it's something that you have to adapt to here. But we'll see what Don Moore can do through the final couple of corners. Time is ticking down in qualifying, and I think we're going to get a good idea of what the grid's going to look like in the next few minutes.
Absolutely. 6 minutes left on the session. Don Moore creeps himself up into P12. Solid lap time here once again, but you just look at the level of talent that's separated throughout this entire grid. It's ridiculous considering, last night we only just barely made it into the 103s. I believe the final lap time was 2 tenths clear of the rest of the field. You could, realistically, as Oliver Sequeira did last night, put in a solid lap time, have a solid race, but then come into, the Tier 2 and find yourself in almost a very similar position, because all the drivers are so talented between both divisions. It's a very interesting conundrum they seem to find themselves in.
Is, but we'll have to see how they all kind of work their way through it, tiptoe dance their way in this event. CJQ coming through the middle sector now. Let's see his middle sector split. He's going to be in nearly, or just over, a quarter of a second up here. So this is looking good for the young McLaren driver. We'll see if he can put himself up towards the, maybe a 1 minute 4, just about. We'll see if he can get any time in this final sector, running through 9 and 10. He could even put himself into the top 10 if he can find a 10th or 2, but goes P13. But again, one more 10th, he goes up another 3 places. It's so tight.
Absolutely. You've got to keep in mind he left a little bit more on the table there as well. Not sure if you noticed from that final corner, lifting off, not necessarily slamming straight back on the throttle, as you can do coming out of that final corner, because of the way the track sort of cambers round. It really encourages you to try and get on the throttle as early as possible. Still have a little bit of time to find there as well, so I could definitely see CJQ creeping into the 104s, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a 104.8, maybe towards that boundary. It just depends at the end of the day how comfortable he's feeling about chucking it through those final two corners, because when it comes to setup around here, there's only really one way you want to go if you're looking towards race trim, and that is by running maybe, 5-6 notches lower on one of the wings, just to make sure you can keep hold of that DRS training. You're not solely reliant on having that to keep up with the rest of the field, so you can actually make overtakes. Was commentating another racing series with Thomas Ronha, who's by far one of the most talented drivers on the game, and he elaborated in an interview afterwards, mentioning about how he wanted and opted for lower wings so he can try and get the move done down into turn 1, get it sorted before the braking zone, then move up towards turn 3 and try and double his progress each and every lap by getting that overtake sorted at turn 1, and then when it came to turn 3 and turn 4, he was able to try and overtake another car. It's certainly going to be something that a couple of these drivers are going to have to take into consideration here.
And it's kind of that element of games here at Austria. You don't get it other places. Netherlands, you don't. Last week, we didn't really see it, where some drivers might give up a little bit of track position or some time to go after the driver, maybe at the next straight, because you can't really afford, at somewhere like the Netherlands, to sit and wait. Here at Austria, there are so many opportunities, half the track pretty much. You spend half the time in a DRS train with your rear wing open. So there's ample chance to make a move. Just Komi-san goes P4, meaning it's a Red Bull Powertrain 2, 3, 4, 5 at the moment. But here at Austria, there's always that element of being able to try and play some games, try and maybe overtake down into turn 3, or let them through at turn 1 with the eye of getting back through on them up towards turn 3 or down towards turn 4. There's always that game of cat and mouse, and it's kind of what makes this track so special, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be one of those where, we mentioned it a little bit yesterday, for drivers, when it comes to certain tracks, thinking especially the likes of Zandvoort, they can somewhat tune their brain off a little bit. Especially heading down that main straight. If you know overtakes coming, you don't need to worry about it too much. You'll follow them closely through, you'll have another shot next lap. All you've got to do is make sure you're focused for that middle sector and that final sector. You'll be absolutely flying, don't need to worry about it. When it comes to Austria though, it's not just that, pinpoint overtaking opportunity. You're thinking turn 1, turn 3, turn 4. We even saw a couple of drivers try it around the outside of 6 and 7 last night as well. The only two corners on the track which you really can't afford to turn your brain off for, when you're thinking in a defensive manner, would be the final two corners, but you're still having to acknowledge and keep your brain switched on for the track limits and making sure you keep control of the car, especially heading through that final corner, because it could be so easy to just push it back a little bit too much and end up falling victim to the track limits here, as we see T de Silva fortunately keeping it within the track limits, approaching up towards the line here, and it's a 105.5 there for a reserve driver, filling in, of course, for the Ferrari outfit.
Yeah, and I mean, even though he is currently slowest all the times, again, he's only 500ths off Monster in the Mercedes. The gaps aren't large. Dormour up to the line. This isn't a fast lap from him. But with 1 minute 25 left on the clock, we are really starting to look at the drivers. That line, that theoretical line in the air, it's going to be around one of those Haas drivers. Where everything behind them is going to cross the line the next time around and meet the checkered flag. Let's see what Oliver Sequeira could do. Was fastest for a time, but he can't replicate the feat. Stays P3, but again, that time would have been good enough I think actually it was only good enough for P7, but that's because P6, 3 places behind him, is 200ths down. I mean, he's ridiculously tight at the top.
It really, really is, and considering as well, he's not able to find any extra time, and that's about 4 or 5 minutes after he set that lap time. Perhaps it being overcast conditions and keeping the track slightly cooler is playing somewhat of a feature of not necessarily being able to get those soft tyres, to get the rubber off on the track, to show that level of track evolution. As Rapid Gopher pushes it a little bit too hard coming out of 3, pays the ultimate price there. He'll have his lap time invalidated, and it wouldn't be, in a perfect opportunity to get anything sorted. As we see Halo creeping up there to P2. So there are drivers who are able to make it a little, make it work a little bit better than others when it comes to this later stage of the qualifying. We're certainly seeing that. Oliver Sequeira, unfortunate to not improve his lap time, but his teammate Donate here, looking to be on a solid lap so far. 2 temps up, in contention for pole position here.
Oh, and he
I've said
was,
it.
and then he went wide. Yeah,
Oh.
turn 7 and turn 8. It's so difficult there because you can just creep ever so slightly wide. The timer has hit 0, of course, and Halo has finished. Denard, Oliver, they're all finished. Rapid OG maybe as well, but Beast is definitely finished. I'm not too sure where Rapid OG is. Maybe I think he's at turn 4. As we see CJQ come into the pit lane. Polowski's coming around the final couple of corners, currently in P10, one of really the last challengers here, but it needs a lot of time, and that's not really the line that you want. Polowski will stay in P10, only a few more runners to cross the line now. I think T. De Silva's one of them, he can't improve. Halo's coming into the pit lane, and then we've only got Crazy I Do It coming around the final corner. This could be an improvement here for the Williams driver. Can he put in a 1:04? Let's see. Yes, he can. It's a 4.9 dead, and he goes up into P11, and it's Rapid OG. Could he sneak pole at the line? He's got Crew Steamers ahead of him, actually, here, who... I think they're both on laps, because Crew Steamers is still pushing, it seems. Rapid OG, is he going to have enough, or will he be blocked? He's had enough! Oh my word, I really thought...
Pole!
Sorry, what was...
I didn't think he got pole!
No, he did. He just about jumped up at the end. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was going to lose time getting slightly blocked there by Crew Steamers, who I think himself improved up into P8. But Rapid OG, he steals pole at the end of the session. And he does take that championship lead now with the 8 points for pole ahead of Rapid Gopher and SSR Halo. What a qualifying session.
Absolutely doing exactly what he needs to do, being able to grab pole position. Looking forward to the race here, but you've got to think, if he was able to follow Crew Steamers that closely, does he have that little bit of extra wing to keep him behind the drivers in a DRS train? He'll certainly, you know, get the rewards of that in Sector 2, but he's going to be struggling heading up into 3 and into 4. But we've got Rapid Go for P2, Halo P3, Donate P4, Oliver Square P5, Kobe Sam P6, Crew Steamers? No, Beast P7, Crew Steamers P8, Alberto P9, and Polowski rounding out the top 10 there. And again, you could see the gaps between the top 3, a tenth of a second, and then from P4 all the way down to P10, only 5/10 of a second. It really just goes to show how close all the drivers are, and if we're in for anything like we had last night with drivers burning the battery, wanting to make overtakes, not happy sitting behind, playing the long game, wanting to make the moves during this first stint, we could be on for an absolute banging race here.
Let's hope, shall we, that we get an absolute cracker. Looking relatively evening time, isn't it, here in Austria? The mountains, it's so pretty. I remember this is a somewhat irrelevant story, but it's relevant to the mountains. In my GCSE French class, the first thing that we were asked to talk about was whether we would prefer to go on a holiday to the beach or a holiday to the mountains. And I was the only person in this class that said that I'd rather go on a holiday in the mountains. And it's places like this that is exactly why. It's beautiful there.
I've got a great story about exactly that hillside you can see in the background. Of course, it'll be quite often the broadcast at Formula 1 will turn around and show a couple hikers walking up the mountain, just as you do. Definitely not trying to peep at the Formula 1. I've got a great friend I used to race with, Marvin, and he was actually one of the people walking up the mountain, having a little peep at the F1 track. He's an avid F1 fan. And he said it was cheaper to do that and park further away and take the hike for a day and a half to be able to set up camp on the mountainside to be able to watch the Grand Prix.
And it's such a cool place as well.
It's brilliant.
Because you even have a view down of the whole valley. And the Alpine valleys are they're just stunning, aren't they?
I mean, we can call it an Alpine valley. I'm sure Alpine wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no. My point. I remember when I used to keep calling Alpine, but now I've been brutally conditioned to call anything Alpine rather than Alpine. But yeah, it's just so beautiful. Austria, particularly an incredibly gorgeous country. But these guys don't particularly care. They're going to be sitting at home wherever they are in the world, the UK, Europe. I think we've got some Venezuelans in the lobby, so you know they're going to just be just pleased to see some scenery. I'm sure. I mean, if I was driving Austria, it looks nicer there than it does here. But Rapid OG, he's going to start from pole, pretty monotone on the strategy. Rapid Gopher is going to try and get the jump, but I mean the two AlphaTauris and the two Red Bulls, they are kind of, you can see them trying to team up on the others, can't you?
Yeah, it's certainly something I can somewhat see happening, but at the same time, it all comes down to how well they're able to get off the line. if they have an opportunity to jump one of their, fellow compatriots, their fellow teammates, they're certainly going to be going for it. And then, you take a think and you think back to the Senna days. Taking the lead down into turn 1, you hold positions, not always the case, especially when it comes to a track like Austria, where you can gain a lot of time by working together, trading the DRS. But something I will point out, we've got both McLarens and Donwall going on that hard compound tyre. All they're looking to do during this first stint is keep their noses clean. If they pick up wing damage, it'll be an absolute catastrophe for their first stint. Having to pit early, going onto a set of mediums, forcing themselves onto a 2-stop strategy. But I do love the broadcast camera. I really do. You can see the lights from here, right, Darragh? We can murmur a little bit of reds. Right, okay, no, it's really not happy. We'll have to take it on board.
We'll have to see how Rapid OG can get off the line and whether we might see Rapid go for try and get a good launch up the hill. Of course, it's a very steep hill up towards turn 1. Alfredo having a couple of connection issues, but, everyone else, they're focused on the lights. There's 5 of them on, but they are gone now, and we are racing here in Austria. It's a good enough start, I think, from Rapid OG, but it's not, because Rapid Gopher, he's going to slither up the inside to try and take the lead. Around the outside, though, goes the pole sitter Rapid OG, and he will hold it there as we run up towards turn 3. Everyone else following in suit. Everyone, I think, in the top 7, sticking in the positions that they started with, but you can see Darragh trying to make a move as they're 3 wide up towards turn 3.
Absolutely. Very late move there as well. From Beast to dart to the inside to avoid contact with Komi-san. Beast having a great start, getting himself up into P6. Exactly what he needs to do to try and minimise the damage in the championship. And also the constructors for Ferrari. Brilliant stuff from him so far. But again, we're going to see so many battles break out of this initial part of the race before all of it somewhat settles down. We start seeing those DRS trains form. And we start seeing drivers try and pick their way through very carefully, very strategically. But as mentioned, we've got drivers on that hard compound tyre which have kept their nose clean. They're going to be the ones to watch for race pace, especially if CJQ is able to pull out this move around the outside. That is absolutely brilliant stuff there from the young driver from McLaren. Fantastic move on a harder set of tyres. Brilliant stuff. Looking forward to him in the future making more moves like that, as we got so many drivers getting so close to one another from that final sector. We saw the pit lane having a couple moments last night, but same again here. Could there be potential for a couple of these drivers to take a little bit too quickly into the final couple corners?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, a lot of these guys, there were a couple... Oh, I think there's a spin at the back, actually, and that is the McLaren. That's a fantastic camera angle, actually, to show where he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's off at turn 1. I think he may have spun on the exit, maybe a bit of contact. Beast and Oliver Sequeira having a battle as well up near the front as Rapid Gopher will try and take the lead. But here is CJQ Mythbusters. After that fantastic move by the McLaren driver, he's trying to hold on to it, but he's losing time to Pelosi in front. He will stay in P12, but he's got to make sure he keeps tabs with Crew Steamers now, and I think it might be a little bit easier for the McLaren driver because Crew Steamers has made a mistake somewhere and dropped a long way off the back of Pelosi. But exciting opening laps. But if you look at the minimap, the top 4, they're starting to get away a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be key here, especially if we was able to get correct interval data from the Formula 1 game. It's a beautiful feature. I really do love it. But Beast needs to make sure he's within that DRS range, especially now it's heading onto lap 3. He might have to burn a little bit of battery because DRS means so much around here, especially in combination with the slipstream. Heading up into turn 3, heading up into turn 4, it really, really does do numbers for these drivers. As I'm expecting to see an overtake here heading up into turn 3. We saw it get switched around a lot yesterday. They weren't necessarily trying to wait for turn 4. They wanted to make the move at turn 3. They didn't mind losing it back out down this following DRS straight. I suppose you could call it the second DRS straight if we're going to count that final one as, the start-finish one as the final one. But certainly drivers here taking it a little bit easier than they have done last night, making sure they're kind of more prepared for going on the defensive heading down into turn 3, which is a fresh sight to see, but I am a little bit worried about how it could impact a couple of these drivers' races. Thinking of Pelosi, Beast as well. The more they defend, the further they're going to fall out DRS.
An element of that could be that they watched the race last night and saw what's good and what isn't good and what works and what doesn't work. And it helps them in their strategy, in their thinking for this race, how they're going to play it out, how they're going to try and get their way onto the podium and maybe onto the top step as well. Let's see if Darragh can get through on Halo. He's getting very close to the back of that Alpha Tauri car, of course, sister car to the Red Bull. He goes a little bit off the track, loses all the momentum. You can see it on that concrete, and Darragh will wave his competitor bye-bye, realistically, unless Halo can try and stick it back around the outside, which I think he's going to try and do here at turn 3. Going to try and keep his foot in, make the move back on the Red Bull, but I think Darragh's just going to be able to hold off, and he's going to be the one to try and chase after the top 2. But Halo, he's still there.
Yeah, that outside line at turn 3 just has so much more traction than any other line through that corner. We can expect drivers to see and necessarily try and defend on the racing line to make sure they can get the outside so they can get that traction down as soon as possible. We can already see a couple of these drivers having the red flashing light indicating they're below 10% in their ERS, showing that these top 4 really are trying to push away just to make sure they've got that little bit of a safe barricade to the rest of the drivers in the train, looking from P5 all the way down to P7. And then, of course, we've got Plosky kind of in the middle of no man's land at the minute. And then we've got Crazy Idea all the way back to P15 as well. You can certainly see this field sorting to form out in different packs. It's certainly going to be interesting to see how that's going to affect their strategy, and whether any drivers are going to try and go for a cheeky little undercut, or if any drivers are feeling brave and bold enough to go a couple laps extra on this medium compounded tyre before slapping on that hard towards the end of the race.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a one-stop really here at Austria, isn't it? Without any kind of safety car infringing on the racing action, but that's always a possibility, as you can get some very close racing, and there are parts of the track where there isn't too much. Oh my word, that's CJQ going very late on the brakes down on cruise steam. As you can see, we're steaming into that corner. I'm very sorry, but there are parts of the track where the walls aren't very far away if you make contact. Thinking about down here towards turn 4, look at that, there's barely any runoff left or right. Alfredo, the other Aston Martin, trying to make his way through on CJQ. No can do there for him, and De Silva's going to be sniffing around as well in that Ferrari. Of course, started right at the back of the field. He's making some good progress so far.
Yeah, got very, very close there. Very much surprised the rear wing didn't tap the rear tyre there. But no, it's fantastic stuff that they're all able to race so close. But I do believe that is Donwar, who's currently found himself in the gravel trap, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. Potentially showing a bit of a problem with those hard compounded tyres. We saw it last night as well. They don't last as long as you would necessarily expect. If the drivers are able to keep the mediums in check, they can pretty much run equal distances.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing here, was Rapid Gopher, I think it's just got past Rapid OG up towards turn 3. DRS overtake pretty easily for the lead. But after a while, yeah, the mediums and the hards, they're relatively similarly paced around a track like Austria. You're thinking about this exit, particularly turn 3, is where you're going to make up. Oh, there's lots of contact. That's CJQ and Alfredo. That's a front wing missing, or an end plate at least for CJQ. And you were talking about it earlier. You don't want to lose a front wing if you're on this strategy in the early stages. And that, sadly, is exactly what has happened. Meanwhile, RL Beast and Oliver Sequeira are fighting for P5 and P6 here. Oh, and I think Beast is going to have it as Oliver Sequeira having a bit of a moment on the exit of turn 6. But we're starting to see groups now. Top 4, next 3, next 3. You know, they're kind of just forming into little echelons at the moment.
Yeah, of course. So you got to think that, yeah, it's all fine and dandy at this moment in time. All the drivers somewhat keeping it relatively paced. You know, they're burning a bit of battery, keeping hold of one another, making sure they've got tabs on the competition. But as soon as that pit window opens, we're going to have drivers forming out into different sort of areas on this track, as we're going to see Crazy Eye do it there, trying to get that move to the inside, taking a Ron strategy, as I mentioned earlier, but not quite being as confident on the brakes as the Formula 1 esports race winner. So, Crazy Eye do it there, just having to sit back in this train. But, again, sitting back in the train, it's not always a bad thing, is it, Darragh? You get that chance to recharge your ERS, and it can be so powerful around here as we see crew steamers once again steaming up the inside and leaving a bit of a steamy mess at the top of turn 3 there, looking to try and recover a couple extra positions to keep his head down, to keep himself moving forward. But I do believe we might have had Oliver Sequeira facing backwards in the gravel trap, having to wait for the cars to go past before rejoining the circuit. Potential for a bit of contact there with the Williams driver.
Yeah, possibly, but at the same time, I don't... you know, very mannerly that he waited, but at the same time, he would have ghosted. I don't think he really would have hit him. So, whilst he was being very, very gracious and respectful, I think he probably could have got away with it regardless. And yeah, talking about trains, considering trains being fine, I definitely did do a race earlier where I accidentally tapped the driver in front of me in the middle of a train. Which I felt very bad about, because it was a very good train. You just sat there, you could charge your ERS, you didn't have to worry about the fuel number, you didn't really have to worry about other elements to your race for a while, really. You could just sit there. And that's a spin, that's Mythbusters, and that is, I believe, a Lando Norris moment. That was a couple of years ago that we saw him do that. Up at turn 1, I'm sure many others have done it, but that was
that the infamous "what did you damage?" But it was my talent.
Yes,
moment.
That was it. Oh, that's getting closer down towards turn 4. Go for. I thought there was going to be contact there. Sorry about that. On Rapid OG, but Rapid OG just about keeping the lead. This top 4, though, they have pulled a massive gap to the rest.
Yeah, and you've got to think here, if you're one of the drivers which might be sitting P2, P3 in this train, Why wouldn't you put the driver in first under a little bit more pressure? Why wouldn't you put the cars around you onto that slightly dirtier racing line with the marbles, which of course play so much effect in this year's game to the tyres, making them not handle exactly how they normally would, which can cause the instance of the mistakes where we see drivers spinners. We got Monster out there in Sector 2 over the Bottas lawn mowing section of the track, I believe. Shouldn't necessarily cause a safety car. They should be able to recover that one, and they absolutely have. Brilliant work from the marshals, teleporting the car away. As always, we love to see it.
We do love to see it, and we love to see the teleportation that we can get in the virtual world that we can't necessarily get in the real world. Rapid Gopher right up onto the back of Rapid OG. SSR Halo slotting in just behind as well. As we run up, it's now lap 9 of 36. For nearly a quarter of the way through this race. It's kind of flown by. You don't really realise it. Because with every lap it's only just over a minute. Here comes SSR Halo down the inside. That's a very late move. There was a little bit of contact there with Rapid Gopher. I think they probably got away without contact, but I think Halo's let him back through. Just conceded the place once again, but all of that fighting, Rapid OG, he's on the cusp of breaking the DRS window.
If you're Rapid OG right now, it doesn't matter if they share the Rapid name, you're deploying that ERS, you're doing everything in your power in this final sector to make sure they don't get the DRS, but we're going to have to wait and see. There's the detection line right there, 1 second. He's got it. He's got the DRS. Rapid Gopher, Halo, Donate are all going to pull up to the back of him here. Absolutely no worries for the rest of them now. They can, shed that sweat. It's all right. Not the end of the world. They'll slowly keep pulling Rapid OG in. He's not got away with a race win just yet. This window is still completely open for these drivers to try and do something a little bit different, a little bit unique, and show a bit of their creative side towards the strategy, as we're going to see Oliver Square are certainly doing that, diving into the pits.
Yeah, this is going to be a creative strategy call.
Hard tyres.
Going to a hard tyre, yeah, possibly going towards the end, or probably all the way to the end if we don't get a safety car, but we'll see what he does there. Of course, he'll get a big undercut. He'll just come out in some clean air and be able to pound the lap times out, really. We'll see where he shakes out in terms of the order when everyone makes their pit stops, but for now, we're going to be looking at Crew Steamers making a move possibly on Crazy I Do It down in towards turn 4. Poloski is the one leading this particular train. But no moves there this time around. Lap 10 of 36 win now one. But Chris Stevens, look at that, using a little bit of that overtake button. Going to have the inside line here at turn 6. And has that move done. Creative move, opportunistic, perfectly done. P8 for Chris Stevens.
You could tell he did the race last night again, can't you? Picking up those opportunistic moves exactly when you wouldn't expect him, knowing when to deploy the battery, something he figured out from last night when he's seen other cars go for the overtake, whether it was on himself, whether it was him doing it and trying it last night as well. Certainly showing that creative spark, that creative genius that you can get just from running in a couple extra races every week. Really goes to show that these drivers constantly improving here once again. It's fantastic to see.
Absolutely is. And it's nice to see this training for the lead, where it's being respectful. There's some good racing. There's some good hard racing between all of these guys, and clearly some respect being given to Nart, though. That is not what he would want to see, dropping a second away, but Rapid Gopher is going to sweep around the outside of Rapid OG, and he is going to take the lead back, I do believe, at turn 4, as they now run through turn 5. But this top 3, Nart risks losing connection with them at the moment.
Yep, certainly we saw that red light flashing. Low battery, it's not going to be paying any sort of dividends down the straight. It's all going to be how much he's willing to sacrifice through the corners now. How much does he want to really try and churn through the tyres in order to hold on to the back of his pack? You can see he's already gained there by 0.3 of a second, showing he is more than willing to put a little bit of extra weight onto the side of the car. But of course, you push the car a little bit too hard through the corners, you end up, picking up those track warnings. Clearly showing there, he's already picked up a few trying to hold on to this train. That's the reason why he's been snapped for that 3-second time penalty.
And this is a track where you've got to be careful with track limits. We've mentioned it earlier. We've mentioned it, quite a lot because it's so important. And he might be able to stick in this train for the rest of the race. But even if he does, it's like a handcuff on him, that 3-second time penalty. Because no matter how... he could win the race on track. If the other 3 are close enough, he won't be on the podium. It's just such an unfortunate position to be in. And it kind of, eats away at your confidence a little bit, and that can't really help you out as we run through this race. Lap 12 of 36, Bron, we're nearly a third of the way through. As we now see Crew Steamers trying for the move for P7. He's been very good at progressively making moves through the field, but Poloski, he's putting on a very good defensive show, but there's Crew Steamers using a little bit more of that battery, and he will sweep through around the outside. Will he? Yes, he will. Look at the speed he's got. Just about ahead, but Poloski's got a front wing alongside. In fact, he's got a whole car alongside, but I think Crew Steamers, just about's going to hold off, but he's lost the DRS to Alberto Maragucho.
Yeah, and Crazy I Do It's going to be right on the back of these two here, thinking for an overtaking opportunity. But a little bit early on the brakes there, Crazy I Do It not necessarily putting his full faith in these drivers to keep it clean between those two corners. Fantastically done by Cruz Stevens and Pulaski there. You see Cruz Stevens here missing out because he doesn't have that battery. Just in a reserve, of course. If you don't have enough battery, you end up losing pace on the straight. And, well, I feel like that was quite apparent what we just saw there. No further comment, Darragh?
Obviously, we're not allowed to judge, but I think,
like,
if it was reported, I think someone might get a penalty for that. But at the same time, very well held by Crazy I Do It. I mean,
you got to give credit where credit's due.
Very easily could have been facing that pit exit wall, but actually kept it going in a straight line, and he's barely off the back of this pack. Either way, Cruz Stevens, he's going to go up into P7 once again. Let's see if he can try and pull this time at Pulaski. He will not let him get very far away. PRL Da Silva, he started 19th. He's 9th now. He's really showing how just keeping your nose clean can really benefit you in a race, because he's, you know, that close. Oh, that's a spin. That's Rapid Gopher at the final corner. He's spun around. I feel like that might just be all on his own. I can't see where he could have had any contact there. And Rapid Gopher, that's a massive error.
Yeah, it certainly is. If you're Rapid Gopher at this point in time, you might, you know, immediately dart to the panic button and think, right, okay, I've spun, maybe flat spotted my tyres, got to dive it in pits, got to try and do something here to try and, you know, gain a little bit of ground. But he just needs to keep his head calm, right? He's got RRL Beast behind him, right? Last thing you need to do is feel the pressure surmounting. You've got to stick to your game plan. You've got to stick to the strategy. It'll come back to you in the second half of a race. Of course, it's going to be so tempting to try and do something a little bit different to these front runners, but he's shown he's got the pace. Now he's got a bit of clear air. He won't have the DRS to help him, but that clear air will pay him so much dividend. We saw it yesterday as well. How quickly the drivers, once they ended up fighting in these packs, are really trying to scrap. Just having that little bit of clean air really helped the tyres get back into the groove, get into an operating window where they were able to fully push.
And just generally, what we're seeing right now, the order that we've got on the tower, is absolutely not what Craggies wants. It's not what Sean wants either. So they're going to be doing their absolute, or they're going to be willing on everybody else really to try and make the move. We've got a pitter, and that is Alberto Maracucho relatively early on lap 15.
Oh no!
Crazy I Do It as well. I feel like that's a little bit of a mistake. We're going to see a double stack. I mean, you would see. Actually, to be fair, it's difficult to know when your teammate's coming into the pit lane until it's a little bit too late. Of course, it is quite a long pit lane here, isn't it, in terms of pit entry. So it may be slightly difficult for the drivers to know that they're coming in, but it's not ideal for Crazy I Do It at all.
It's where you
we're nearly halfway through this race. Medium runners, they're going to pit soon.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they're going to be thinking lap 16, lap 17 to dive it into the pits, but it's just where you need that little bit of extra communication between yourself and your teammate. It's fine if you don't necessarily get along, you don't spend time with them outside, but you do need that level of communication. You've got to treat it like a work environment when you come to these sim racing events. You've got to stay focused, you've got to keep it calm, and of course, from that, you can do, you know, many different things, similar to what we've got at PRL, where drivers have started to form these connections, have started to form friendships, team up together, and, well, they're more than happy to race with one another. They understand what everyone's capable of, and they're more than happy to share the track with them through some brilliant moments we've seen here so far. But, given that as well, it can form a couple rivalries here and there, and one of them, which we're going to have to keep an eye out for the remainder of this race, will be Halo and Rapid OG. Halo keeping him very honest at this moment in time.
Yeah, Rapid OG not really allowed to stretch his legs in any way, shape or form at this stage of the proceedings. Shane, I think, if Shane's watching along, he'll be very much hoping that Halo gets through. Maybe Rapid has a bit of an error that Rapid Gopher had, but, you know, can't wish for too much. And especially as we go into this mid-season break, I know we mentioned it earlier, but, you know, with 2 weeks off, especially if these drivers do some other series themselves, you know, it's a little while for these guys to really then zone back in to get into the rhythm again with only 5 rounds. So you really want the points on the board now. That's what these drivers know. So they're going to be really fighting, I think, harder than you would see maybe last week or the week before to really pick up some points.
Yeah, and there we go. Rapid Gophers decide to call it in the pits. Going for an undercut, right? But you've got to consider the drivers, to add on to your point, as we're going to see another swap for the lead potentially up here. These drivers, they're avid racers. They love racing, they love the competitiveness. I'm sure PRL isn't their only home. I'm sure they do different competitions, regardless of, you know, whether it's for example, WOR, PSGL, they'll want to race during this. They've got 2 weeks off here. A little reset to the brain. It can, not pay dividends for some drivers, while other drivers, it can rejuvenate them. Take Daniel Ricciardo as a real-life example. He took a little bit of a break away from Formula 1. He came back absolutely swinging. He's took a winter break, and he's come back bobbing his head in the water.
I was going to say that it was a weird...
I'm not wrong.
Choice to pick Daniel Ricciardo. No, but
up until Zandvoort, it was perfect. And then Zandvoort happened and it all deteriorated. But
it fell apart, really. But this is important, for the race picture. I mean, it helps Rapid go through that he came up behind his teammate, because Mythbusters wasn't really going to find him too hard, knows that it's not his race, and won't really want to hold his teammate up. We now see Halo, Rapido, and Denard, all of them into the pit lane at the end of lap, which I believe is for them lap 17 of 36. We're now on to lap 18. So 17 on the mediums, 19 on the hards. Pretty much an even split. Makes sense. Let's see how they get towards the end. Of course, we have a safety car. That throws a big spanner in the works. And look at Crew Steamers. How many drivers can Crew Steamers pick off
all
here?
of them.
I think he's going to get all but Halo. Because Halo... Oh, no, actually, he's got the DRS. We'll get Halo as well. But Crew Steamers will lead. But there is a couple of drivers between Halo and Rapido G. This could be crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's Crew Steamers. How much does he really want to battle with this front runner Halo? Does he want to kind of keep Halo back in? Does he want to try and back up the field a little bit? Of course, he's not done his pit stop yet. You can expect those hard compound tyres to be slightly cold. But at the minute, Halo's showing I don't know what he's done. I reckon he's put a bit of microwave before he strapped them on, because those tyres look up to scratch right now. Looking to get himself back up into the lead, and now he's got that buffer. This is where he gets to be creative. This is where he gets a little bit of a buffer, as we see a couple moves there in the back. Pulowski there just taking a slightly wider line, trying to help Rapido get his way back through the race, but Crew Steamers certainly not looking to detriment his own race. Why would he?
Oh, and I think he's coming in. Got to be careful. Rapido around the outside. What a move that was from Rapido. Brave, bold, and it worked, and it wasn't that dangerous either. But it now means that the top three are now kind of together. Denard has kind of picked up time as Crew Steamer speeds in the pit lane. Denard, he was off the back of the top two. He's now right on the back of Rapid OG, but they've both got some work to do to catch up to Halo. Rapid Gopher still 6 seconds back. Beast in there as well. But, I mean, we're just really now waiting for just Komi-san and Don Moore to pit, realistically, and then everyone will be going to the end.
And it comes to his question, why is Rapido fighting this? Let Denard past. It's not the end of the world. There's still, almost halfway, if not over halfway, of this race to go. It's slightly under at this point now. You don't need to fight this. Work together. Catch up to Halo. You have the potential to do that. It's Austria. It's not a Zandvoort. You can sort of balance it out. You can trade positions to make sure that you can get back within that DRS range. You don't need to burn your battery. You don't need to waste your tyres. It'll naturally happen as Donate there picks up another 3-second time penalty as the game decides to give us a brilliant front wing cam showing us absolutely nothing. And then it's decided to go for a Halo cam there for Beast instead of showing us a potential off-board shot where we can see Kobe-san on those 16-lap old hard tyres still trying to hold it in there, but it's looking more and more like a challenging task for Kobe-san at this point in time. Beast there able to get over a second for that middle sector alone on Kobe-san. It's tough as Donate comes back into the pits for a set of medium tyres. That's interesting.
Huh. It's not something I expected to see. But yeah, he's coming. He's going to come out ahead of Crew Steamers here. I do believe just about ahead of Crew Steamers. It's going to be tight, actually. I think by the time they get up towards turn 4. But yeah, maybe there wasn't damage on the car, was there?
No.
No, it's a bit of a weird one. Crew Steamers is going to look at a move up the inside and not go for it in the end. Then I think that's going to compromise his exit to the point that Denard will be safe down towards turn 4. To Silver making a move, I think, past Villeneuve, who we barely mentioned, if at all, during this race so far. He is now watching the guys battling up in front. That's Pulowski and Crew Steamers fighting over P9 and 10. They've been with each other for quite a while. But now, really, it's a battle for the win between just Halo and Rapid OG, because I mean, you can't really see anyone else going for it at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw a safety car interfere with a race yesterday. For better or for worse, it depends which side of the pitch you're on. It made an absolute screamer of a race, really entertaining. But if you're the drivers, you would feel a little bit nicked off that the entire race got disrupted. Brings into a whole different argument of should safety cars be allowed. But you know what? Besides the point at this moment in time, something we also saw just a little hint of yesterday as well was lapped cars getting, giving the DRS to those on the lead lap. battling up towards the front, it really played a huge impact, and I believe we might have just saw it there again with Halo, stretching the gap to Rapid OG because of a lapped car in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely so, and I think it's interesting that Oliver Sequeira and just Komi-san, granted, they may have to pit again, but they're 5th and 6th. They've been able to use their pace in clean air while everyone else has been fighting, and they've come out that far in front. If they can pit in, you think, maybe even just
Safety
3 or 4
car.
laps and go to yeah, even a safety car, but even if they go to a soft, under green flag running, they could fly through the rest of the field. They could really pick up some decent points here, and it's not really a loss for them, because we still have 15 to go for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you think about strategy, getting caught up in an instant at the start, it sucks, yes, but it's given them that time to think, give them a clear mind. They can sort of decide, sort of dissect, understand what strategy they feel like will be able to work best. They've got the clean air, they've been able to get a bit of good running in here. These tyres, they can make it to the end of a race. It's just whether these drivers feel comfortable holding on to the life of these tyres throughout the remainder. And now this is exactly what I was talking about that the front two should have been doing, which was Rapid and Donate when they were, racing side by side before Donate pitted. Swap him with a DRS. It's not the end of the world. One of you takes charge, leads with DRS, burns a little bit of battery, the other one behind can save a battery, and you swap it every lap. It works. You can catch up to drivers quick enough, as long as you don't want to try and challenge it too wide heading up into turn 3. Make sure the move is done before the braking zone, and it can really work wonders for these drivers. So I believe that might be what Oliver Sequeira and Komi-san are doing, to try and create and open up that little bit of a buffer between themselves, Alberto, Donate, Poloski, so when the tyres do get to the degradation point and fall off the cliff, they've still got a bit of time in the back pocket, as we see Donmore finding a bit more time in his pocket, but it won't be the time he wants because it's another 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, we're seeing a few of them pop up now, aren't we?
Yes.
We have got 14 to go for everyone, 13.5 really for the leaders. As we watch Oliver and just Komi-san dip their way through turn 1. Alberto Maracucho is starting to really turn the screw and gain on these guys. But if these guys pit, I mean, they're going to probably come out, I'd say around Donmore, probably just ever so slightly ahead, maybe behind actually Donmore. But then you've got clean air, you've got a couple of cars to overtake, but they shouldn't be too much trouble. Got a yellow flag back there, I think that's Villeneuve, going off wide at turn 3. And yes it is, you can see him over the Aramco sponsoring there. But with every passing lap, SSR Halo, he is just looking ever more comfortable in the lead, because that is now extending 4.2 now, the gap.
Yeah, he's building that gap, isn't he? He's laid the foundation with this strategy, and now he's building the walls to his castle, trying to defend off that P1, and so far it looks like the only thing which might be able to stop him would be a potential safety car, or maybe a lot of track limit violations, but you got to think, with a 4.4 second gap, how hard does he really feel like he needs to push to make sure, he's going to be able to take the win here? Surely not that much, not enough to warrant 6 seconds worth of time penalties, no?
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I mean, it's crazy.
I was about to say, it is sim racing at the end of the day, isn't it? Anything could happen. That's part of the beauty of it.
I mean, anything can happen in terms of what you're doing, what anyone else is doing, and then what the internet is doing, because that is always a fun element that you don't get in real life. Crazy I do it, though. He's run on the back of De Silva. These two, they have been kind of with each other for a few laps now. That is not the line for De Silva, or what he would have wanted, and it's going to compromise his exit a little bit. Overtake being used by Crazy, but you can see very little in the store. Down to the inside. Can he make this move for P11? Oh, well, this is going on. Beast has picked up a 3-second time penalty, which is going to hamper his resurgence, you could say, as De Silva fends off the challenge from Crazy I Do It. But, yeah, 12 to go now. Still some questions to answer. Do Oliver and just Komi-san pit soon? Do they stay out to the end? I mean, there's lots that they can do. It's just really what they want to do at this stage.
Yeah, I certainly feel like if I was in one of their shoes, I would want to just hold on for a little bit longer. You've got the inevitable of Donate coming through on that medium compounded tyre. Best case scenario, you form yourself a little train with the likes of Alberto. All three of you work together. All of a sudden, it becomes an awful lot harder for Donate to be able to pick apart this train. He's going to have to rely on using those tyres to go later on the brakes into corners, which, of course, you go later on the brakes, more chance for contact. It's a risk. Does Donate want to take the risk? He was sitting pretty comfortably in a P3, would have been a P4 with his penalty applied, but will he want to take the risk? For me, I'd be betting no. I don't think he would. I don't think he'll feel comfortable trying to go for these overtakes, as we see. Certainly someone who's willing to take a risk is going to be Alberto there, getting through with a little squeeze, a little love tap there, and Kobe-san's around!
Not the way you really want to be pointing if you're the Alpha Tauri. I mean, there was that just a little bit of contact in the mid-corner, possibly, with the older hard tyres, just drifted out a little bit wider. At the same time, might have just been a little bit of contact elsewhere. It's difficult from that camera angle, isn't it, really, to try and see exactly what happened. But Darragh, the pace advantage that he has on everybody else at the moment, seems just incredible. Just Komi-san almost surely coming into the pit lane. And indeed he does. Probably going to put on a set of soft tyres. That's what I would do right now. But let's see what Darragh can do. Of course, he's got Alberto in front of him. And then up ahead is his teammate, Oliver Sequeira. And actually, he retired from the race. As we have only about 10 laps to go. But, I mean, it's such a shame, isn't it, for just Komi-san? He was out on that hard tyre for so long. And, yeah, it's just not worked out for him.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Again, we mentioned it. It's the same race at the end of the day. Anything can happen. Slight bit of contact happens. Komi-san feels like the race was completely ruined. Decides to retire in the pit lane. It's a massive shame, especially knowing the pace Komi-san can offer to this grid as well. A fantastic driver who showed on many occasions they've got the pace to navigate their way through the field. As we mentioned before we started this race as well, showing quality to get the overtake sorted. It's just unfortunate the way it's sort of gone down as we see Donmore disconnect as well. Currently sitting in P13, hopefully they're able to rejoin the lobby as soon as possible to make sure they don't lose too many positions to the Ghost, which will take responsibility as we see Tita Silva and Crazy Eye do it there, having a slight moment. One of the Ferraris in the gravel trap.
Yeah, not the ideal line. We're starting to see a few more little collisions, aren't we, between drivers? Oh, as that's Darragh making a, I think a forceful move, we can say, on Alberto Marigucci to put himself up into P6. Cruz Steamers and Poloski, they say, yes, thank you guys, keep fighting away. We're gaining up to you two. They're now in the DRS 8th and 9th, joining this battle for P6. But Alberto, of course, without that penalty, you'd say is currently in the driver's seat in that regard. But can he even make the move back on the Red Bull down in towards turn 4, inside line? Of course, the track drops away from you as you take the inside line there, and he keeps his foot in through turn 5, takes the shortest line, and takes P6 back again. But there's some good fighting going on here. Even if we're not getting much fighting for the podium, there's still some good fighting for position.
Absolutely, and we see Darragh there not being able to use those medium tyres to the level he would necessarily like, and you've got to think now, how much longer is Alberto really going to be able to battle for this position until Darragh's tyres start to fall off and we see the likes of Cruz Steamers and Poloski on those hard compound tyres really getting to make it work, really getting the opportunity to go on the offensive on Darragh. I feel like it might only be 1 or 2 laps away at this moment in time, especially considering how many times Darragh's had to go off the racing line to try and make an overtake. Those marbles will not be playing ball with his tyres in the slightest.
They will not. Let's see here. There are going to be cars all over the dart now. There's there's contact. There's one. Here comes Cruz Steamers up the inside as well. He's going to send it late. He's going to make it very cleanly, though, but doesn't really get the exit he so desires. The Silver's retired in the pit lane, but look at Poloski's exit here on Cruz Steamers down towards turn 4. The Mercedes driver looks like he's got enough to make this position stick, or this move stick, I should say, on Cruz Steamers. And he has. He's up into P8 now, and the Aston Martin demoted to P9. All of a sudden, he looked like he was going to get 7th, and then he's back in P9. It's just how you race. It's racecraft, and it's just unfortunate for him, but some fantastic side-by-side action.
Exactly, and we'll see there, Darragh having a slight little wobble going through turn 6, causing him to lose a little bit of time to Alberto, which of course puts him slightly closer to the grasp of the likes of Cruz Steamers, Poloski. Certainly they're going to be trying to eye him up, heading up into turn 3 at this moment in time, as we do have another yellow flag there. I do believe that is going to be for the Ferrari of Tita Silva. Retired in the pit lane, but I believe it has rolled itself back out. It shouldn't cause a safety car, shouldn't cause a VSC. We're all looking good and dandy at that point. Certainly, Poloski's looking very much dandy, heading up here, up into turn 3, got a better exit, just playing as much with the battery as possible. All these drivers searching for scraps on their ERS reserves, aren't they?
Yeah, it's not looking terribly healthy, is it? As we see Poloski all getting very close to the rear end of that Red Bull car, possibly. Or there could have been a little bit of contact there. I was worried that we might see them both spear into the wall, but thankfully they're still going down towards turn 4, but I think Darragh may have given a bit of a love tap there to Alberto as they make their way through the third real overtaking opportunity of the racetrack. Darragh, though, maybe going a little bit wider to allow Poloski an inside line. These guys have been fighting hammer and tongue, haven't they, for so long, and it's just allowing Oliver Sequeira to feel a little bit comfortable in P5 at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we knew he was going to be feeling the effect of those hard compound tyres sooner or later, but certainly with all this battling going on behind it could potentially buy him maybe one or two of those crucial laps he needs to try and hold on to P5, and potentially even a podium, depending on how many penalties the drivers in front have, which is something we'll be able to have a little check after this battle's finished, but I don't feel like it's going to be finishing anytime soon. Polowski had a little look to the inside, decided to back out of it halfway through the overtaking opportunity. Wise move, didn't want to lose time, didn't want to put himself in a vulnerable position to crew steamers, and he's still got this overtaking opportunity heading down into turn 4. It's looking pretty good so far for the Mercedes driver. Not necessarily as good for Donate here, who went for something different. Has it backfired?
Yeah, very possibly, or I thought it was getting contacted again. Something that hasn't backfired is SSR Halo's race. He is 4.5 seconds in the lead. He is starting to approach Donwar to lap P12. I mean, he really has been in a dominant mood so far this evening, and he has been very, very effective in his driving and in his racecraft. And he is it's gonna take a mistake from him personally to lose this race, and Rapid OG is going to be hoping and praying for it. Gopher has got P3 wrapped up with a bow on top as well, unless he makes a big mistake, because even though he has a penalty, so does Beast. Talking of Gopher, I think he's going to go side by side with Rapid OG. They're going to be fighting up the hill, and there's a bit of lag here between the battle for P6 and P7. But Oliver Sequeira, he's still getting away. I mean, there's still lots of storylines here. 6 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can expect Rapid OG to maybe want to just hang behind his fellow Rapid teammate. Just wait for a little bit of time. Of course, that time penalty is going to play back into his hands, giving him the opportunity to reclaim P2. Not necessarily too much of a need for any strong fighting, unlike this battle here where we've got almost all the drivers, apart from Alberto, having a time penalty. Once again, Alberto taking that defensive line, making it stick. Doesn't matter how much of a better traction Donati is going to be able to get out of that corner, because Alberto has been able to place his car almost perfectly every single time going through the second sector of the track. It's absolutely been fantastic, but we see there, maybe just letting off on the throttle a little bit too early causes a bit of disruption. Donati's been able to make himself up into P6 there. And now, Alberto's looking very vulnerable to the likes of Polowski and crew steamers behind, who certainly had an opportunity to make an overtake there, but might have got a little bit spooked.
Yeah, very possibly getting a bit spooked. And these guys, I do not know how they have not come to some kind of major airplane crash here, because there have been so many close moments. But as it is, Polowski overtaking Alberto. Alberto surely going to come back down the inside. Yes, he is, just sneaking his way between the Mercedes car and the grass to put his car up into P7 once again. But Polowski not going to let him have it easy. But the Williams driver should just about hold on the exit. And we'll have another dose of DRS to help him out as well. We've got 4.5 laps to go for these guys to finish this race. And really, that's only 5 minutes of racing. If you think, I've got 4.5 laps to make a move, when you convert that to just 5 minutes, you start to think, oh, I've got to get this done quickly.
Yeah, and you could also convert it into key braking zones as well. Of course, we've got, realistically, the 3 key braking zones to try and make that overtaking opportunity work. Put that together with, the 4 laps we're doing now as we've crossed the line? It's not looking good. You got 12 real key overtaking opportunities to go for the remainder of this race. It's about choosing which one, where you want to make it, how you want to make it, and if you'll be able to make it stick. As I will just point out, Crew Steamers, he's been tailing this trade for a little while, and I don't believe his red light's flashing. No, it's not. He's charged upon ERS. He's looking for one of those last lap real offensive moves. As we're seeing here, Rapid OG, Rapid Gopher, still just following each other. Rapid OG waiting for the final lap of the race to try and get the overtake. I believe he's looking at this moment in time for what they would normally in real Formula 1. P2, best it can offer at the minute.
Yeah, you can only really fight for what you can get. I mean, They all would have wanted to win this race, obviously, but SSR Halo, he's just been in a class of his own so far this evening. Side by side, Denard and Alberto Maracucho. Those medium tyres, they aren't working as well as they once did, are they? And Alberto back up into P6. Really, I think driver going under the radar, possibly for driver of the day, Oliver Sequeira. He pitted so early in this race, and it didn't look like it was going to work out for him, but he looks like he's going to pick up a P5 finish here, which would be an incredible result and fantastic points on the table. Oh, but these guys, they have been fighting so close for so long. It's been so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it adds on to the thing I was saying about not really being able to turn your brain off. Every single lap, they're having to readjust what sort of lines are taking, where they're turning in, where they're braking, to try and make sure they're defending properly, safely, and in a, a relatively well enough manner to hold on to the position in comparison to the likes who are going to have different length tyres, who are going to be feeling a little bit more pressure with different setups. All of that adds up into how drivers want to defend. We see Alberto here once again taking that inside line, willing to give Donate a better run on the high side, but this time he's not able to pick up that DRS, so he will solely be relying on a little bit of slipstream and a little bit of battery to try and get a move back down in turn 4, but it's not quite enough this time. Donate now surely looking to just get his head down and try and pull away here, but those medium tyres, they've got another thing to say about that plan.
Yeah, they do, but we'll have to say, I mean, he's just hanging on for dear life. They all should be hanging on. The tyres aren't fresh. The tyres aren't really in their peak condition by any stretch of the imagination, but they're still plodding along. I mean, even Mythbusters here. I mean, if these guys keep fighting long enough, Mythbusters could easily pick up a P8 finish. If they lose maybe just 2 more seconds in these closing laps, and if Mythbusters doesn't pick up a penalty. Another thing that I've noticed, just randomly over the last few laps, is that, as I have to pause that thought for Pelosi to make the move on Alberto, but Alberto back again down the inside, is that Villeneuve has just been using the DRS off the back of SSR Halo for ages, just to get his way past the likes of Donmore, and he has just been very happily sitting where he is. Crew Steamers, is that a double overtake attempt? It's an attempt, but it's not going to be executed for him. He's not even going to make one of the overtakes, and it's going to allow Crazy I Do It to be right in the middle of this battle as well. Look at Mythbusters close that gap. He is arriving on the scene, and very soon, he's going to have that window to jump up into P8.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, we'll have a little look here. We've got 3 seconds of Rapid Gopher, 3 seconds for Beast, 9 seconds for Donate, 3 seconds for Poloski, 8 seconds for Crew Steamers, 3 seconds for Crazy I Do It. So you would realistically consider Mythbusters jumping up maybe all 3 positions if he's able to close up in a...
Maybe even 4.
Yeah, potentially. That's certainly going to be something we're going to have to take a little look at towards the end. But the drivers have approached towards the final lap of the race, and we have seen that overtake for P2 happen. But have you noticed how much Halo's let off? 3 seconds now. It's gone from 3 seconds to 5 seconds. Just making sure he's able to just keep himself there. Making sure he's able to pace himself properly. Brilliant stuff. But Mythbusters disconnecting from the session. That's not going to be the result he wants, because of course that'll lose him out a little bit of time to the rest of the field here.
Yeah, it's absolutely not ideal for him. I think Halo, maybe he's going for a fastest lap. Actually, I don't know what he's doing. He's just backing off. He's going slowly. He is not... Maybe, has he run out of fuel?
No,
he hasn't. Okay.
He's just taking it easy.
Ooh, I worried about that. I was very worried there. I mean, he was slowing down, but regardless, he wasn't worried. He was in control, as he has been for 36 laps here at Austria, because SSR Halo wins round 5 of Season 12 in Tier 2 of PRL, and he closes the gap to the championship leaders in a race where the top 2 weren't here to pick up any points. Rapid OG and Rapid Gopher are the other 2 drivers on the podium, with RRL Beast driving in the end a very lonely race for P4. It's going to be Oliver Sequeira, I think, just about to hold on for P5. This clamour of cars behind, they have been all over each other for about the last half an hour, but it's going to be Alberto who holds on, and look at the positions change. Poloski 7th, Crazy I Do It finishes 8th, Mythbusters, who wasn't in the session, still picks up 9th, Crew Steamers 10th, and Donat with that big penalty down in P11. Alfredo Donmore and Jaja were all lapped, which just means that we're waiting on Villeneuve, who was miles behind the rest to finish his race. But SSR Halo, what a result for him. Fantastic race.
Yeah, got that opportunity. A little bit of clean air, broke the DRS. That was all she wrote at the end of the day. Being able to employ their own strategy, making sure it works, keeping to the game plan, keeping it focused, dialed in every single lap, not having an opportunity to slip up anywhere on the circuit. A really well-deserved race win, and fantastic job there from the AlphaTauri driver. Going to be very much looking forward to seeing how Halo's going to be able to do, looking over towards Abu Dhabi for next week. Next week? No, in 3 weeks' time. To try and carry this momentum through. It's a great opportunity for them. Certainly something that maybe a couple of the drivers, thinking about the likes of Craggy and Shane, might not necessarily be too happy with.
No, not at all. But, you know, when you're not here, you just got to look at the results and think, okay, well, I know the championship picture is now different. I've got to, you know, be beating the likes of Rapid OG, being worried about SSR Halo. I mean, he is now a force to be reckoned with in this championship battle, no doubt about it. But it will be the AlphaTauri driver picking up the victory, and we can see all the Class 5 results. He started third, wins the race, which means that he'll pick up 31 points overall. Rapid OG, pole and second, that's going to be 26 for him, so still a very nice chunk of points. Rapid Gopher himself picking up 22. So for the top three, very, very productive evenings. Then you jump down, the next best is going to be, RLPs and Oliver Sequeira both picking up 14 points, I do believe, if my maths is correct. Which I think it is, thinking about it. But they were 4th and 5th. Alberto Maracucho, fastest lap in the end as well. He finishes 6th. Poloski, Crazy I Do It, Mythbusters, Cruise Demons Denart, they were all in that train. And they're 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, right on the cusp of points. Denart will be disappointed not to pick up any points at all from the race. Feel Nerve, 12th, of course, not a lap down. But then everybody else, Alfredo, Dormwar, and Jar Jar were a lap down. De Silva, Just Komi-san, CJQ, and Monster did not finish the race. But I mean, Josh, overall, that was an interesting race, and I think the championship is gonna look a little bit different after it.
Yeah, it certainly will. It's been very different from what we saw last night as well, which makes me wonder what on earth we're going to do for Tier 3 to make it different for both of these races for tomorrow night as well. Certainly something I would, I'd keep an eye on if I was any of those drivers which may have filled in for this week. Maybe have a look back to what the drivers were able to do in Tier 1 as well. Try and compare, try and figure out what's necessarily popping, what's going right for those drivers, what's going wrong for a couple of drivers. Just trying the best to minimise the risks. Of course, Donati there playing the risk, deciding to go back onto that medium tyre. It was a risk, it didn't pay off. Would it potentially work in a Tier 3? Only those drivers would know.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting storyline, really. But I see in the podium interview, we've got a couple of guys waiting for us. And I'm interested. I think Halo isn't going to be able to talk to us, but I'm just going to be interested to see the thoughts of Rapid OG and Rapid Gopher, really, because they had some interesting races.
Absolutely. Shall we hop over?
Do it.
Right. Rapid Gopher, Rapid OG, congratulations on the podium, boys. How did you find Austria?
Who do you want first?
We'll go you, Gopher. You spoke up.
Alright. I love Austria, mate. It's one of my favourite tracks. Yeah, it just, high-speed corners, throwing it in. The setup was feeling very twitchy today, hence the spin out the last corner. The rears started to go. But no, I loved it. It was good fun. Good fun battling with OG and Halo. I mean, it was Halo, wasn't it, that won it?
Yeah.
So big respect to him for the win. He drove very well. And massive respect for when he went for that dive. He just let me straight back through. So, really, really sound guy and good racing. It was fun.
OG, how did you find that one?
Nerve-wracking. I fueled just enough, expecting a safety car, and then obviously we didn't get it. So that's where the gap created between me and Halo, as I had to back off to try and save fuel, and then Gopher caught me. So yeah, it was a bit stressful trying to fuel save, but it was fun. Happy enough with P2. Kind of gutted I had to fuel save so badly, because I could have probably challenged Halo in the end, but oh well. If my maths is correct, I'm top of the championship, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I think you're quite comfortably there now, so it's a nice little buffer for you to have. I mean, we talked about it on the stream. We've got a couple of weeks break now. Does that change anything for you? Does that, are you pleased that you've got a bit of momentum, a bit of a kick going into that break, knowing that when we return in Abu Dhabi, you're going to be championship leader, you're the target that everyone's chasing? Does that give you a little bit of confidence for the next few rounds in a couple of weeks' time?
Well, the next, what is it, Abu Dhabi next, and then Qatar?
Saudi Arabia and then Qatar.
So, I don't mind like Abu Dhabi. Saudi Arabia, I really like the track, but the last time I raced I DNF, so yeah, need to go over that. Qatar, I like the track. Again, that's another track just like Austria, as I mentioned last week. Austria is massive for penalties, and so is Qatar, so if I can keep it clean there, I'd be fairly confident on that one as well. But yeah, I mean, 5 races, 4 podiums, or is it 6 races? 5 races, 4 podiums, pretty consistent. So yeah, I just need to convert a pole to a win one of these times.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure it'll come in a matter of time. Gopher, how do you feel going into this break? Do you feel like maybe a potential bit of a momentum swing? You're looking forward to Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, definitely. Saudi Arabia, again, absolutely love the track. Abu Dhabi is a good track. I mean, to be honest, the second half of this calendar I like. The first 4 races, I really didn't. they're my worst tracks. So, yeah, I'm looking for a bit of a comeback and to chase down OG.
Without sounding too cocky, I do welcome that. Because it was a great battle between the two. It was like pretty much the whole race up until your spin.
Yeah.
I was gonna. We mentioned it on stream as well that you kind of touched on it. The first 4 tracks are very different to the rest of the calendars. We might see some different guys try and push their way through, but again, that's going to be something we're going to have to wait a few weeks for, because of course, in a couple of weeks' time, it is going to be. I think because we're having a 2-week break, if my mind, Josh, I think you have the calendar up. If you can confirm that for me. Which means that the next Tier 2 race is going to be on the 10th of April.
Oh God.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, you're correct.
I just want to double check before I said that,
it's okay.
and it'd be very wrong. But yeah, so 9th and 10th of April, Tier 1 and Tier 2 back once again in PRL for Season 12. Second half of the season will get underway, but we do have those couple of weeks of break for the drivers to, rest and recuperate, get themselves ready for that title charge before the end of Season 12. We're looking forward to it, I think, aren't we, Josh, in the second half of the season, to see who can come out on top. But all of you guys watching at home, you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks before we do come back. But we do hope you enjoy those couple of weeks. There's a couple of Grand Prix in there while we're away. But when we come back in PRL in 3 weeks' time, in fact, we're going to have the run-in of Season 12. 5 races to go. We've got Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Belgium, and Great Britain to decide who are going to be the champions. And these guys, Rapid Gopher and Rapid OG, they've put themselves in the mix. But we'll have to find out to see who comes out on top in a few weeks' time. And we'll see you when we return.